What's up, everybody? Hockey Time here, back again with another video. Today, just want to run through a quick recap of the first week of the NHL season. For those of you that have been following along on my TikTok or on my shorts here, we've been doing recaps of every game every night. So if you want to keep in touch with what's been happening every night in the NHL season, feel free to check that series out. But just wanted to run through a quick kind of recap of the notable stories from the first week. I didn't want to do a power rankings this week just because there's some teams that have still only played one game. I didn't really think that was fair to those teams to make adjustments just based on one game. So there will be a power ranking coming out this Friday, but for now, just going to cover some of the notable things that have happened so far, aside from the league following Bedard like Hawks. So the first thing out of the Pacific Division is a couple teams that are having a bit of goaltending trouble pretty early on here. Both the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. Both teams have had both goalies play at least one game now. So the Kings with Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley. Neither of them had great showings in either of their first two games. The Kings played the Avs and the Carolina Hurricanes. In both of those games, 5+ goals given up for Copley. I think he only had like 14 saves on 19 shots or something like that. And then Talbot had a bit of a better showing, but still both goalies sub 900 save percentages, so really not good there. And then similarly for the Oilers, though a bit different because they played the same team twice, so a little bit more, I guess, head games there if you want to call it that. But either way, both Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell struggling a bit out of the gate here for the Edmonton Oilers. So just a couple of things to watch there. There are a few teams that have three goalies on their roster, so there could be moves there down the road if those teams continue to struggle with goaltending. But for the time being, I think just some tandems to keep an eye on if they do continue to see some turbulence as the next week or two goes along. Sticking with the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights look solid as possible coming out of the start of the year here. Not really any cup hangover aside from maybe the first couple minutes of their opening night game against the Seattle Kraken. Aside from that, they've really looked fantastic. I know they played the Ducks, which you can kind of put an asterisk on because the Ducks are not expected to be a very good team. But nonetheless, they've taken care of business in all three of their games. They are undefeated, still 3-0. So we'll see how long the Golden Knights can keep up their undefeated streak and just how well they continue to perform as the season progresses. Another thing to keep an eye on early here. I don't expect Brock Besser to stay in this, but the Rocket Richard race is already kind of hot. Austin Matthews, obviously, 6 goals in his first two games, which no one expects him to keep up that pace. However, it does put him in a good spot early on to have a good, jump in the Rocket Richard race. Again, I would expect him to be up there regardless. I don't think 40 goals is going to be kind of his norm. But starting with 6 goals in your first two games means maybe 60 is obtainable again for him. Another player that had a really hot start again was Brady Tkachuk. He's got 4 goals, I believe, through the Senators' first 3 games, so he's on pretty good pace there as well. Again, I don't know that I expect him to keep up with Matthews, but a couple big names there going pretty good in the Rocket Richard race. Continuing in the Atlantic Division again, a couple teams to cover here. So the Bolts do look a little shaky without Vasilevsky, which I don't think anyone's surprised by. Their first game against the Preds, they as a team looked pretty solid. I mean, the Preds didn't get many shots in the first period and a half, almost 2 periods. But when Jonas Johansson does start to see some action, he doesn't really look super confident. It seems like he's kind of bouncing around his crease a lot, not really settling into his positions. And especially once there's chaos around the net, it just kind of becomes a mess. So we'll see if he can kind of continue to get more comfortable as games roll along. I do expect to have him continue as the starter until Vasilevsky comes back, but a bit of concern there for the Lightning, who they can outscore their problems to an extent, but they're not a team like the Leafs or the Oilers that can do it on a consistent basis anymore. A lot of their bigger horses are not as young as they used to be, to put it lightly. So we'll see what the Lightning can do. And then the other two teams to watch in the Atlantic, I think, are the Sabres and the Senators. The Sens look pretty good out of the gate. They did lose to Carolina on their opening night, but aside from that, they've looked pretty good. Again, Brady Tkachuk looks great. Stützle looks great. Giroux looks great. The goaltending there is a bit shaky too, but not nearly as bad as it is for some of those teams mentioned in the Pacific. So I think the Sens look pretty good so far. We'll see if they can keep that up. And then the Sabres had some trouble scoring their first handful of games. I think Devin Levi, again, looks a little bit shaky, but again, he's a kid. It's probably to be expected. He'll probably iron things out as the season goes along. But those are really the two teams that people are looking at in the Atlantic to maybe shake things up. So it'll be interesting to follow those two and see where they progress as the season goes along. I'm hoping the Sabres can kind of pick up their offense a bit and that Devin Levi and the defense for Buffalo can kind of mellow things out. And if that happens, I think the Sabres are going to be just fine. But for the time being, the Sens are definitely the better of those two teams in the very, very early parts of the season. Uh, Another thing back in the Pacific of so Seattle led the league in 5-on-5 scoring last year. They have two goals so far this season, so definitely struggling to find the back of the net. Um, Again, this is a complete overreaction, but um, this was kind of my concern with Seattle going into the season. They relied a lot on having really, really good depth scoring last year, and so far they're just not getting that. So if that continues to be a problem, um, I just have a tough time seeing them making the playoffs. But again, we're just a couple of games in, massive overreaction, but just something to keep an eye on for Seattle. On the flip side of the coin, the Canucks look great. I think I have a goal differential of 10 or 11 through their first two games. Demko looked great in his first showing against the Oilers, and then Casey DeSmith put on a pretty good show against the Oilers on Saturday night as well. And their offense is clicking. I mean, obviously Brock Besser scoring 4 goals in the first two games. That's not a pace I expect him to keep at all. But their offense has been putting things together at a pretty good pace here. Pedersen has been good. JT Miller's been good. Their defense has been fine. They're still waiting to get Carson Soucy back, so I think that's just going to get better. I think if Demko can stay healthy, this team, do I expect them to make the playoffs? No, but if they're continuing to play like this throughout the year, I think they have a decent shot at it. But we'll see what the Canucks can continue to do moving forward. Again, it's a long season. We're 2 games in for them, so again, I'm fully aware that this is an overreaction to what's happened in those 2 games. But from what we've seen so far, it's pretty good signs for the Canucks. And lastly, the last thing I had was the Arizona Coyotes, who had a pretty good showing against the Devils. I believe they play their second game tonight, Monday. And we'll see what they're able to do. Again, a lot of young talent on this team. I think their expectations are a bit higher. I don't expect them to be in or near the playoffs this year, but more of just seeing what they're capable of as a team. Again, I think they have a lot of really just young kids that are going to be exciting to watch and see how they fare as they progress through some of their rookie years, whether it's Logan Cooley or some other younger guys like Barrett Hayden, for example, who's really filling that first line center role in an NHL team, which is tough for a kid his age. But we'll see what they're capable of, and then of course, honorable mention here, the Connor Bedard tour continues. They play the Leafs tonight. He's got 3 points in 3 games so far. He's looked pretty good, so we'll see what he can continue to do. But that's it for this one. Let me know what other storylines you guys are kind of keeping an eye on. It's been a pretty exciting start to the season so far, and looking forward to covering more of it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll talk to you on Friday for the first power rankings of the season. Until then, we'll talk to you guys soon.